Let's speak to Times Radio presenter Adam Boulton, who's seen a few American elections in his time. Morning to you, Adam.
Good morning.
I'm sure it's going to be a simple answer to this, but what happened here? Was it a bad candidate in Kamala Harris? Was it a bad campaign in Kamala Harris, or was it a good message from Donald Trump? A simple message, a message that people thought would make a difference to them and the money in their pocket.
Well, oddly enough, I think the explanation is fairly simple, and I think we've experienced this before. We experienced it in this country in 2016 with Brexit, and again with Boris Johnson's victory in 2019. This time round, what was seen as the Democratic red wall in the northern swing states appears to have crumbled. And what appears to have happened is that while the party on the center left, if you like, the Democrats picked up and got the support in big cities and in suburbs. There were more people in smaller towns and rural areas who felt the pressures of the economy, who have responded to the promise that Donald Trump, if elected, will make things better, and have effectively disregarded all other factors to do with his past behavior. So that's that. I think we have seen this happen before. The question, of course, now for Donald Trump is whether he's going to be able to deliver on the economic brighter times. And of course, one other thing we have to remember is that under the US Constitution, he can't run again. So the Republicans, too, I think, will have to start looking at what happens next to keep their coalition together, although that is down the road. Interesting that we got very different reactions from the British political parties. The Labour government patting themselves on the back that they put their eggs in Trump's basket. I think as we're just hearing from Kate McCann, I think there'll be a transactional relationship with Trump rather than a special relationship. We'll see how that develops. But Ed Davies saying it's a dark, dark day. A demagogue has been elected. And I think, for the rest of us, and indeed for American citizens, the question is Donald Trump's bite the same as his bark? Because clearly he's talked about retribution. As you say, he's won this trifecta, apparently, of both houses of Congress and the presidency, and he's already had the Supreme Court. Or will he turn out, as he did indeed last time round, to be a more conventional Republican president? And that, of course, will have severe implications for what Israel does in the Middle East, and indeed what Russia does in Eastern Europe.
We're about to discuss Ukraine in a second, but what do you think? Because he has a kind of impatience for these things. He says, "Well, I can fix Ukraine in 24 hours," and presumably he thinks he can fix the situation in the Middle East. Perhaps not in 24 hours, but quickly. We had a Republican on saying that Donald Trump will probably tell Benjamin Netanyahu to end this particular conflict, whatever you want to call it, by January. So what do you think? What's your best bet about what he might do in relation to those two situations?
I think in terms of the Middle East, we're going to see him going to the Abraham Accords, which were forged by his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And really that will be a question of ending this conflict on a basis which satisfies not just Israel, but also the leverage on them will come from Saudi Arabia, which of course is an enemy of Iran. So I think any people who thinks that Israel is going to slow down quickly in what it's doing are likely to be disappointed. As far as Ukraine goes, I think things are more open. It was very interesting listening to the reaction of his supporters. They say, what they want from Trump is action on the economy, action on crime, action on immigration, although that doesn't seem, according to the exit polls, to be quite a hot button issue as perhaps Donald Trump thought. But they also talk about him getting the world under control, which, an America First position is pretty much averse to conflicts around the world. So how far will he go? Will he carry on supporting Ukraine to the extent that he has, that America has so far? I think that's unlikely. But will he go all the way and basically say to Zelensky, you're on your own with what support you've got from Europe, unless you agree to a settlement, which is likely to be territorially and perhaps politically in what Russia wants. So I think, these are difficult times for the world, partly because Donald Trump, he's honest about it. He believes in America first, and therefore America first has tended to mean a more isolationist approach and to let other countries fight it out. And we do know, of course, that in the past he has found it easier to deal with, or more comfortable to deal with dictators than he has to participate positively in international institutions.
Adam, really interesting. Thank you so much for that. That is the Times radio presenter, Adam Boulton. Let's speak to someone who actually went to sleep and woke up to the news and is a real friend to this programme. It's Joe Sternberg, member of the Wall Street Journal, of course. Morning to you, Joe.
Good morning.
Can you remember, what time did you wake up this morning, roughly?
Oh, I woke up at around 6, which is usually when you start getting a vague idea of what might have happened.
Yeah.
So,
and what was your initial reaction?
I was not actually particularly surprised because I thought that any of the three outcomes that I thought were possible were going to be a close finish for either of them or a surprisingly large finish for Trump. The one thing that I was certain was not going to happen was a landslide for Harris. And I think that you could sort of see the signs for this in the weeks leading up to the race. I think that you could see a lot of evidence that the Democrats didn't think that they were going to win. I think that Democratic Senate candidates in a lot of these swing states, particularly Pennsylvania, Montana, were actively running against Harris in a weird sort of way. The Democrats were trying to attach themselves to Trump's coattails, and that suggested to me that, in America, you don't just have the opinion polling. All of the candidates run their own ground games. You have these legions of volunteers that are in contact with voters all over the precincts and every swing state. And what I was beginning to suspect is that the Democrats were getting a lot of negative signals from the people who they thought would be their voters about which way it was going to go.
So were they taking them for granted?
Well, I think that it was always going to be a very difficult election for any Democrat to win because of the economy. I mean, I think that we're going to look back on this election and think that it was just staring us in the face the whole time. Some of the issues like, abortion or various other social issues, even democracy versus fascism or the rest of that was a distraction from the fact that Americans just did not feel that the economy had performed as well under the Biden-Harris administration as they remembered from the Trump period.
Interesting. Joe, stay there. You're going to stick with us for the next half hour. We're going to speak to Amy Koch, who's a Republican strategist. Morning to you, Amy.
Good morning.
Was it all to do with the economy, do you think? Or was it Donald Trump?
I mean, it's a number of factors, right? And I've been talking with folks here on London Times Radio and elsewhere, and they're constantly talking about sort of for the Democrats will constantly be saying, well, he's this and this, and he's saying that, and he's lying about that. And I would say, I don't disagree with you on all of that, but I think why is he winning then? What is going on? It seemed like the Democrats, didn't want to accept that they didn't have the strongest candidate on the ballot, even after Joe Biden left. Vice President Harris was not a candidate that even got close in the Democrats' own primary. And so wasn't, if Joe Biden had stepped off a year and a half ago and they'd had a robust debate and primary, they might have come back with a stronger candidate, but kind of choosing in the last few months and picking the vice president because that was the obvious person in the next in line isn't the best thing to do with a campaign with this kind of stakes.
Yeah, but we'll come back to the Republicans in a second. But do you think that because it was so late, do you think that actually that if they had stuck with Joe Biden, they would have got a less worse result?
Oh my goodness,
less bad result?
No. This would have been this would have been even worse. But what I'm saying is, like, there was continued like problems with the candidate. There was problems with the race. And I think it's just so easy to like focus outward and to complain about Donald Trump and to talk about, he's doing this and he's doing that and focus all on that. And then while ignoring problems with your message, problems with your candidate, none of that seemed to ever be acknowledged. And so that's certainly that's a big part of it. Also, the economy is a part of it. Also, immigration is a part of it. Also, like there's going to be a snapback. Democrats have been in charge of almost everything for several years. And when you get a mandate like that, whatever party you're with, they tend to go overboard on things and not even realizing it, right? And that's, so talking about the Republicans going forward, I hope they don't do this, but it's very easy to do where you just assume that, well, we won. Yeah. Even though the margins were razor thin, the Democrats acted like they won in major landslides, and they had a mandate to do all the things that were deep in their progressive, pockets. And that's just not where America is. We lie somewhere in the middle.
We know what Donald Trump wants to do, and he actually said promises made, promises kept. America is going to be great. It's going to be a golden age of America. I'm going to help the country heal. And we know what he wants to do. He says he wants to make America affordable again. He wants to cut taxes. He wants to supercharge tariffs. He wants mass deportations of illegal immigrants. What about, well, first of all, on that, how soon do you think before Americans actually do feel better off?
Well, we'll see, right? This is one thing about any person who wins an election. Depending on how deep the economic problems are, there is always a lag. And, Joe Biden may have enjoyed a better, in a year or so, a better economy based on some of the actions that he took. But Trump will get the credit because he'll be sitting in the seat. Just conversely, it's the same. Yeah. You might not have done anything. You might inherit an economy that's headed in downturn. So we'll see about that. I do. I think he loves the tariffs. I do not like the tariffs. That's going to be an interesting discussion. He's also likely going to have a Republican Senate. We're certainly going to have a Republican Senate. And it's looking more and more like he may have a Republican House. We'll see. But, they're also going to be able to have to weigh in on some of the things. And I think there's enough fiscal hawks that may have some concerns about those tariffs as well.
Amy, I'm just interested as a final question. Would you like to see a female president of the United States one day? Or are you not bothered?
Oh, it's been my dream since I was 8 years old. I thought I would be the first woman president.
There's still time. There's still time.
I cannot believe at my age that there's still time. But I used to wear a little tiny polyester suit with a button, Amy, for president. Well,
Donald Trump's 78, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, right. I mean, of course, like it's past time, America. It's well past time. I think Nikki Haley, had she been on the ballot, she would have run away with this election. I think it's the quality of the candidate here was just not as strong as it could have been, and the campaign was also curtailed. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of things to be said, but I expect fully to see in short order a female at the top position in the United States of America.
Okay, Amy, thank you very much for talking to us. That's Amy Cook. She is a Republican strategist.